employers to immediately pay aid allowance for workers. Matahari department store to close 13 outlets in 2021. Good afternoon, viewers. Market Headlines is ready to provide you a number of informations from business, economic, and capital market sectors. With me, Claranta Wijaya, and this is Market Headlines. The Ministry of Manpower has again reminded employers to immediately pay religious holiday allowances to workers no later than 7 days before Eid.
Minister of Manpower Ida Fauzia asked employers to pay the 2021 holiday allowance in full and in accordance with the provisions of laws and regulations, because she claimed the government has issued various incentives for business sector since the beginning of this year. The minister said that the full payment of holiday allowance from employers to workers would have a positive impact on the economy, where it would boost purchasing power and increase consumption, which would have an impact on increasing economic turnover.
Sebelum saya mengeluarkan di Depenas, harapannya sekali lagi karena pemerintah sudah memberikan banyak insentif, harapannya adalah ada kepatuhan dari para pengusaha untuk membayar THR ini. Dengan pembayaran THR ini, pemerintah berharap sekali akan meningkatkan daya beli masyarakat, mendorong konsumsi masyarakat yang pada akhirnya juga bisa mencapai target pertumbuhan ekonomi kita.
Previously, the government required employers to pay holiday allowances 1 week before Eid al-Fitr, but for employers affected by the COVID-19 pandemic that were unable to pay the holiday allowances according to the provisions, the government provided concessions, namely delaying payments no later than 1 day before Eid, as long as the employers carry out dialogue with workers and submit financial reports. From Jakarta, Ade Firmansyah for IDX Channel.
The Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy calls on people to take vacations in the city during Raya holidays instead of homecoming. City vacations is considered a good way to slow down and to see the experience more of a city. In the same time, it can suppress the COVID-19 cases. Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy appealed to the public to take city tour or staycation during Raya holiday. This way, domestic tourism industry and creative economy can grow. According to the data from the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy, in the first quarter of this year, foreign tourist arrival is still minus up to 34.9%. Deputy for Strategic Policy of the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy, Raden Kurleni, stated that foreign exchange from tourism sector also shrank to 3.45 billion US dollar from the previously 16.9 billion US dollar. This happened due to a drop in foreign tourist arrival in 2020, which was only 4.05 million tourists. Therefore, if people start to take city vacation, it can boost domestic tourism industry. At the same time, it can suppress the COVID-19 cases.
Larangan mudik saat ini bisa ditaati untuk bisa kita keluar dari pandemi COVID-19, dan kita menyarankan bahwa memang sebaiknya wisata di yang dekat-dekat saja, staycation, agar tetap industri ini bisa tumbuh kembali.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy predicts that the sector will begin to improve in the third quarter of this year in line with the increasingly massive vaccination program run by the government. Jakarta, Gilang Praditya for IDX Channel. Numerous countries across the world have little choice but to implement travel bans and restrictions to and from India in effort to prevent the spread of COVID-19. And the good thing is, the travel ban may not bring significant impact to Indonesian economy, as core economic observer stated. Center of Reform of Economics, or CORE Indonesia, warmly welcomes the government's move to implement travel bans and restrictions to and from India in effort to prevent the spread of coronavirus COVID-19. The policy does not have much effect on the Indonesian economy, considering that the foreign exchange contributions from Indian citizens to Indonesia is not that large. The economic observer, Faisal, stated that India is the sixth largest country which visits Indonesia. But according to the observer, the budget spending is not large, so that the impact is not that big for Indonesia economy.
India sebetulnya merupakan salah satu negara terbesar penyumbang wisatawan ke Indonesia selama ini, terutama sebelum pandemi. Di 2019 sekitar 657 ribu wisatawan dari India itu kira-kira berada pada ranking 6 ya. Meski demikian, kalau kita melihat dari spending, tentu saja bukan hanya jumlah wisatawan yang kita lihat ya, tapi seberapa besar tingkat pengeluaran wisatawan tersebut di dalam negeri, karena itu sebetulnya efek ekonominya. Nah, kalau kita melihat sebetulnya dari sisi spendingnya tidak sebesar dari urutan jumlah wisatawannya ya.
It was getting intense as Indonesian Health Minister Budi Gunadi Sadikin confirmed on Monday at least 10 people have tested positive for variant COVID-19, which was first detected in India. The news came 2 days after government banned foreign visitors from India for coronavirus fears. From Jakarta, Rizka Ayu, IDX Channel. The Ministry of Industry targets investment in the manufacturing sector to reach 323.56 trillion rupiah in 2021, an increase of 58.28 trillion from 2020 target.
The Ministry of Industry targets investment in the manufacturing sector to reach 323.56 trillion rupiah in 2021. An increase of 58.28 trillion from the 2020 target. Minister of Industry Agus Gumiwang stated that the projected investment absorption is based on the assumption that the COVID-19 pandemic is controlled by the vaccination program. This positive growth target of investment is also in line with the growth of the non-oil and gas processing industry, which is projected to increase to 3.95% in 2021. Agus assessed that a number of global investors are still eyeing Indonesia as a production base to meet the needs of the domestic and export markets. This is also in line with the government's determination to create a conducive business climate by providing various facilities, one of which is through the issuance of the Job Creation Law. Based on data from BKPM, during the first quarter of 2021, the investment value in the manufacturing sector reached 88.3 trillion rupiah, increased by 38% year-on-year. In more detail, the investment value of the manufacturing industry sector in the first quarter of 2021, which comes from domestic investment, reached 23 trillion rupiah and foreign investment of 65.3 trillion rupiah. IDX Channel team reported.
Market headlines will be right back after this quick break. Stay tuned. Halo Sobat Milenial, berikut adalah pilihan investasi untuk Sobat Milenial. Yang pertama adalah tabungan di bank. Nah, tabungan di bank ini sifatnya sangat liquid, jadi dapat diambil kapanpun dan dalam bentuk cash. Yang kedua adalah deposito. Investasi dalam deposito dapat diambil ketika jatuh tempo dengan tenor tertentu dan imbal hasilnya 5-6% per tahun. Dan yang ketiga adalah investasi dalam bentuk obligasi. Nah, obligasi ini dibagi dua. Ada obligasi yang diterbitkan oleh pemerintah dan ada obligasi yang diterbitkan oleh perusahaan swasta. Yang keempat, investasi saham. Dengan berinvestasi saham, kita akan mendapatkan dividen atau bagi hasil dari perusahaan. Dan yang kelima adalah investasi reksadana. Reksadana adalah produk investasi yang dikelola oleh manajer investasi. Dalam reksadana dapat menjanjikan imbal hasil 10-20% per tahun. So, kamu pilih investasi yang mana?
Target pemerintah kan untuk mencapai herd immunity, dan dengan penduduk yang 270 juta, perlu kan sekitar 180-an juta penduduk yang harus divaksin.
Kereta api Persero yang kembali menambah fasilitas layanan pemeriksaan genos.
Welcome back to Market Headlines. Property associations, Real Estate Indonesia, say that the government stimulus for property sector have boosted the property sales at the moment. However, due to high demand, the house price is now increasing as well. Chairman of Real Estate Indonesia, Paulus Totok Lucida, said property sales had indeed increased in March 2021 and even until April 2021. The last 3 months, property sales increased up to 15%. According to him, the property that is most in demand by people in the midst of pandemic is for the prices below 1 billion rupiah with a market share of 82.3%. However, due to high demand, the house price is now increasing. National house prices continue to show an increase, reaching 5.24% on the annual basis of March 2021. This is in line with an increase in housing demand during the pandemic. From all sources, IDX Channel. COVID-19 plunged Indonesia into a recession, leaving millions of people out of work. But in the middle of crisis, the housing market boomed. Why is that so? We are going to discuss about this Efek phenomenon through these following infographics, starting from the rise of housing prices in Indonesia. We can examine through the house price index. We can see the comparisons between the first quarter of 2020 and the first quarter of 2021. Here it is. In the first quarter of 2020, the index was at the level of 170. However, in the first quarter of 2021, which is the latest data, it was at 179. And yes, the increase, it was 5.24%. The nationwide house prices continue to show an increase, reaching 5.24% on the annual basis and during the first quarter of 2021. This is in line with the increase in housing demand during the pandemic. But overall, this is a very basic price mechanism of economic principle. The higher prices means the higher demand. More people have appetite to buy a house recently. As a result, some sellers realized that they could profit by raising a price. That is why the index increased around 5%. And there's a fun fact in here. Research results from the Housing Finance Center owned by Bank Tabungan Negara shows that the increase in house prices was supported by significant growth in medium-large terrace house for a house with a total floor of area of 70 square meters. So let's see the growth in the next graphic. Here it is. We can see the growth, the house index of a type 70 houses. We can see in the first quarter of 2020, the index was at the level of 153. But however, in the first quarter of 2021, the index was at the level of 161. The significant increase remarked for 5.49%. And yes, viewers, the significant increase in the price of type 70 houses was even higher than the growth before the pandemic, namely only 4.8%. 4.86% in December 2019. So, I can sum up that it went up by 4.86% before the pandemic, but it went up around 5.49% in the pandemic. Interesting, right? This type of house is generally in a great demand by the upper middle class, with the area that is quite relieved, and of course, the Type 70 house is pitched at quite high price too. But the demand is increasing these days, and the question is, why is that so? And I will reveal the reasons in the next graphic. Here it is. We can see the reasons behind the revival of the national housing sector. Here it is. We can see there are reasons that it is provided by Bank Tabungan Negara. First of all, is a 0% down payment policy. And the next one is that rapid infrastructure. And yes, the ongoing vaccinations program. And the comeback of the business activities with health protocols as a new normal culture, and the vaccinations already underway will provide a positive psychology for the property market. But the most important thing is the housing market is on a sugar high brought by the government stimulus and a pandemic-fueled rush to low-density housing. Let's see the stimulus given by the government through the next graphic. Here it is. We can see some relaxations and stimulus policies in the property industry provided by the government. First of all, 100% VAT exemption on property purchases below 2 million rupiah. And then the next one is that the lowest mortgage rate of 4% up to 5% only. And the next one is that the 0% down payment, the iconic one. And the Indonesian Real Estate Associations, or REI, said that the various stimulus issued by the government has boosted property sales at this time. And the chairman, Paulus Totok Lucida, said that the property sales had indeed increased in the last 3 months up to 15%. According to him, the most wanted property in the midst of pandemic is for prices below 1 billion rupiah, with the market share of 82.3%. And yes, viewers, hopefully government expanded the stimulus to more property segments so it can create a domino effect and demand will go on and on. Stay with us because market headlines will be right back after this quick break. Assalamualaikum Sobat Milenial, berikut adalah tips untuk mengatur dana THR. Yang pertama adalah menabung sebagian dari dana THR yang diterima. Dengan Anda menyisihkan dana THR untuk ditabung, Anda dapat mencegah pengeluaran yang tidak terkontrol. Kedua, membatasi belanja online. Di tengah Ramadan dan Idul Fitri banyak sekali e-commerce yang menebar diskon di mana-mana. Nah, Sobat Milenial jangan terjebak, prioritaskan dana THR untuk kebutuhan utama. Yang ketiga adalah zakat dan sedekah. Anda bisa mengalokasikan 2,5% dari THR untuk zakat fitrah dan sisanya bisa dialokasikan untuk berbagi kepada sesama. Keempat, dana darurat. Di tengah pandemi virus corona, dana darurat dapat menghindarkan kita dari kejadian yang tidak diinginkan. Ya Sobat Milenial, memang menerima THR ini merupakan momen yang ditunggu-tunggu pada saat Lebaran, tapi tetap harus bijaksana dalam penggunaan THR dan harus menggunakan dananya sewajar-wajarnya dan juga jangan boros.
Pemerintah secara resmi melarang mudik Lebaran pada tahun 2021 ini.
Larangan mudik akan dimulai pada tanggal 6 Mei sampai dengan 17 Mei 2021.
Majelis Ulama Indonesia memperbolehkan penggunaan vaksin COVID-19 untuk produk AstraZeneca pada saat ini.
Penggunaan vaksin COVID-19 produk AstraZeneca pada saat ini hukumnya dibolehkan.
Welcome back to Market Headlines. So viewers, let's take a look at Jakarta Composite Index intraday movement. So earlier today, JCI was open at the level of 5,959.95. And then approaching the closing time of the first session, the index was on the level of 5,966.79. And the index was showing strengthening trend by the second session closing time. The index was closed at the level of 5,974.48. In short, JCI went up 0.25%. Next, we are going to see the sectoral movement. Leading the dynamics of today's trading, we got basic industry as the leader of the strengthening trend that went up 1.62%. And we got consumer goods that went up 0.98%. Then we got missing industry as the leader of the weakening trend that went down 2.28%, and agriculture that went down 0.76%. And moving on to the top gainers and the top losers, here are the key highlights from today's trading sessions. We got KOTA that went up 1.12% to the level of 360. We got BMRI that went up 2.48% to the level of 6,200. We got Aneka Tambang that went up 1.67% to the level of 2,430. And we got TBIG that went up 2.21% to the level of 2,780. And meantime, for the top losers for today's trading sessions, we got BBCA that went down 1.33% to the level of 31,600. We got BBRI that went down 0.96% to the level of 4,130. We got Astra International that went down 3.17% to the level of 5,350. And we got Telecom Indonesia that also went down by 0.63% to the level of 3,140. Next, we're going to see the intraday movement of rupiah towards US dollar. So rupiah opened at the level of 14,497. And rupiah was also showing weakening trend towards US dollar. It was closed at the level of 14,467. In summary, rupiah went down 0.03%. Matahari Department Store, or LPPF, intends to close 13 outlets by 2021. The plan to close outlets is in line with the company's poor financial performance, which recorded a higher net loss in the first quarter of 2021.
Matahari Department Store, or LPPF, reports that it intends to close 13 outlets by 2021. Currently, the company has 147 outlets consisting of 124 regular outlets and 23 outlets under supervision. Based on the financial report, the management will close 13 outlets and supervise 10 other outlets for possible closure. The plan to close 13 outlets is also in line with Matahari's poor financial performance. During the first quarter of 2021, the company recorded a net loss of 95 billion rupiah, or greater than the previous year's net loss of 93 billion rupiah. This net loss was obtained after management recorded 26.7% lower gross sales in the first quarter. Meanwhile, Matahari recorded a net sales figure of 1.16 trillion rupiah, or 25% lower than 2020. Matahari Department Store Chief Financial Officer Niraj Jain said that the company's business during the first quarter of 2021 was still affected by the strict restrictions, which then continued with the micro-scale restrictions. However, he confirmed that the company will still open new outlets in April 2021. One of them is located in Balikpapan Ocean Square. IDX Channel team reported.
Bmri, or BMRI, recorded a net profit of 5.91 trillion rupiah during the first quarter of 2021. The number shows a decrease of 25.24% from previously 7.91 trillion rupiah in the first quarter of 2020.
Bank Mandiri recorded a net profit of 5.91 trillion rupiah during the first quarter of 2021. This number shows a decrease of 24.24% compared to the same period the previous year of 7.91 trillion rupiah. Director of Finance and Strategy of Bank Mandiri Sigit Prastowo revealed that the decline in profit was due to an increase in allowance for impairment losses by 55.42% year-on-year from 3.47 trillion to 5.4 trillion in March 2021. In addition, the company experienced a decrease in fee-based income of 1.62% to only 7.61 trillion rupiah. The decrease in fee-based income was due to company that has not booked revenue from dividends from its subsidiary, amounting to approximately 700 billion rupiah. Later, this dividend will be recorded in the second quarter of 2021. In addition, the company experienced a decrease in profits from foreign exchange transactions by approximately 1 trillion rupiah. Even though the profit fell, the net interest income was recorded to have increased by 12.55% from 15.53 trillion rupiah to 17.48 trillion rupiah. IDX Channel team reported.
Vale Indonesia recorded sales of $206.6 million in the first quarter of 2021. The number grew by 18% over the same period of last year. In line with increasing sales, Vale Indonesia's net profit increased significantly, namely 16.36% year-on-year, from previously $28.96 million to $33.69 million. Compared to the fourth quarter of 2020, Vale Indonesia's net profit increased by 445%. CEO and President Director of Vale Indonesia, Nico Kanter, explained that the increase in revenue was due to higher nickel price. At the same time, the company also controlled its operation costs. In the other hand, Vale Indonesia's cost of revenue increased slightly in the first quarter of 2021 to $154.81 million from previously $154.33 million in the fourth quarter of 2020. From all sources, IDX Channel. Step aside from market conditions as coronavirus pandemic takes a big role on current economic situations. Here it is an update data about coronavirus globally. And the news close our market headlines today. Please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, Your Trustworthy Economic, Business and Capital Market Channel. I'm Clara Wijaya. Have a nice evening and stay safe.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Subhanallahi wa bihamdihi, subhanallahil azim, adada khalqihi wa ridha nafsihi, wa zinata arshihi, wa midada kalimatihi. Allahumma sholli ala sayyidina Muhammadin sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yaumiddin. Pemirsa yang dirahmati